Welcome to B&H Videos.
Hi, welcome to B&H Event Space and Real Exposures. We're going to be talking with some of today's top photographers in a variety of disciplines. Today we have the amazing Harvey Stein with us. Harvey was born in Pittsburgh. He's a professional photographer, teacher, lecturer, and author that is currently based in New York City. Harvey has taught at New School University, ICP, Drew University, Rochester Institute of Technology, University of Bridgeport. He's also the author of many books, which is pretty impressive, actually. It's a large body of work that you've had. And you've been at this for quite some time.
Yes.
So tell me, your work is represented at Bruce Silverstein Gallery. That's in Chelsea, right?
Yes.
That's a fabulous
Big
gallery.
gallery. Nice.
Yeah, right on.
Good
on
gallery.
The I've been rejected a few times there, so that's.
So have
I. Throckmorton Fine Art, June Bateman Fine Art. It's in New York City, and Photo Researchers Agency in New York City. You also teach workshops abroad and here in the country. And you also just got back from Mexico. How was the Mexico workshop?
Mexico's great. I've taught there, did a workshop there. I've done a workshop there for 5-6 years. I've been going to Mexico for 15 years, and I'm working. One of my books is on Mexico.
Now, how's your Spanish?
Terrible. I don't speak Spanish, but I nod and I point the camera, and you know, we get along. A lot of the people there speak English, so it's not a problem.
Have you done anything in Oaxaca?
I've been to Oaxaca for Day of the Dead once. It's not my favorite city. I go to Tasco, which is a small city that looks like San Francisco. It's on a hill. It's all white, and all the cars have to be white. And I photographed Semana Santa there, which is a pre-Easter celebration.
They don't let black cars in
No
there?
black cars.
Really? Interesting. Well, let me ask you a question. When you're photographing in Mexico, do you ever kind of get inspired by Edward Weston and his travels?
No. What inspires me, I was just asked this recently, what inspires me? What inspires me is the place, and then within the place, the people that are there. I go to the same places every year. I go back to the same places. The place doesn't change, but the people change. So my advantage, I think, is in shooting people, it's always different. I keep going back to the same, like Coney Island for years and years, to Mexico, to Italy, and it's not the cities or the towns, but the people that I'm really interested in.
Okay. You are firmly rooted in New York City.
Right.
You're kind of an impresario of photography in New York City. You've taught at all the major New York City photo schools. You've affected a lot of students here that have been studying photography for quite some time. You're originally from Pittsburgh. Tell me, how did you start in Pittsburgh and end up here in the Big Apple?
I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, and I went to Carnegie Mellon University, and I got an engineering degree. That was my old life. I came to New York to study at Columbia, and I have a master's degree in business, an MBA. So I visited New York when I was about 17. I went to Coney Island. I saw someone on the parachute jump. I was 14, I guess. And I said, I'm not going on that. Then I saw a little old lady on that parachute jump, and I said, if she can do it, I can do it. And I did it. I always wanted to live in New York. I think New York is the only place I could live in the United States. So school brought me here, and then I got a camera here and started photographing. I don't think I would have become a photographer had I not been living in New York. New York gives us permission to do anything we want to do. And I had a large group of like-minded people that were here as photographers. In Pittsburgh, maybe there'd be 1 or 2 people that photographed. Here, there were hundreds and hundreds, even in the early 70s. So I was inspired by New York. It helped me pick up a camera and pursue what I found out is what I really love to do, which is photography.
Yeah, I just want to give a little pitch for Pittsburgh. You left Pittsburgh, but
Right.
have you ever been to the Daguerrean Society that's in Pittsburgh?
I haven't.
They have a Daguerrean
Yes,
museum.
I know.
That's
I've been to the Warhol Museum, which is fabulous. I love Pittsburgh. It's a great city.
Do you think
and
that
I go back a lot.
Did the photo culture in Pittsburgh kind of warm you up to the photo culture that's in New York City?
No, I didn't know anything about the photo culture in Pittsburgh. But, you know, I was a kid when Gene Smith was there photographing. He photographed, what, in 54, 55? He did a major series of photographs on Pittsburgh. And I go back there, I look at his photographs and try to find his sites, and sometimes I can't even get close to where he photographed. You know.
So you mentioned you came to New York City when you had your first camera. And,
Right.
We are filming here in the middle of B&H Photo, which has been described as photo camera mecca. So this leads me to my next question. What was your first camera?
My first camera was a Zeiss Icon Contax. I was in Europe and bought the camera in Germany then, and I still have it. I got it out of a box. I'm putting things away, and I'm clearing out things, throwing things out, and I found it. It doesn't work.
You didn't exercise the shutter? Or?
It doesn't work.
No?
It doesn't work. But I took, 3-4 years worth of photographs with that camera. The unique thing about that camera was that it was a leaf-type shutter. So you buy the camera, and every time you buy another lens, the leaf is in the shutter is in the lens, not in the body of the camera. So it was pretty unique, and it was probably a really good camera at the time.
Okay, so you have an engineering degree.
Right.
You got an MBA in business.
Right.
Which are both theoretically lucrative careers. Being an
Right.
engineer, a businessman, I understand that there's a lot of there's a lot of money in business, and you put all that on the side, and you got into photography, which photographers we could eat top ramen, and stale bagels. It can happen. Do you have any regrets on becoming a photographer? Or?
No. I'd say photography saved my life. In my 20s, I was bouncing around a lot. I was an engineer. I actually worked as an engineer for 2 years. Came to New York, studied at Columbia for 2 years. Got a job on Madison Avenue for 2 or 3 or 4 years. So I was in my late 20s. Was disenchanted with the business world. And was doing photography as a hobby and a serious hobby, and I just said, I love photography, I don't like my job, I'm going to quit and try to become a photographer. And I've never regretted it. I say it saved my life.
Really?
I've never looked back. And the only thing I ever want to do is photograph. I mean, as a profession. I don't want to make films or do video. I know this is what I do and this is what I love. And
looking at your work, I'm a little surprised that you come from an engineering background, because I find a very organic and spontaneous nature to your work.
Right.
Is there a particular body of work that you'd want to talk about that has a relationship to your engineering, or what's your background?
I guess I put engineering behind me as fast as I could. I don't refer to it. I don't use it. I didn't like it. I was guided into that by my parents. It wasn't my decision. I was 17 years old when I graduated high school. I didn't know much about anything, and sheltered in Pittsburgh, and it really doesn't mean much to me. It gave me a sense of being organized. I'm very organized. I have good skills in getting my work together, so that's probably helped.
Talking about your work, we have your work available here.
Right.
What is one of your earlier bodies of work that you're quite proud of, and maybe if the lovely Jennifer could also roll this body of work.
Right. The first project that I worked on was the Twins project. While I was working in the early 70s, I started this project photographing identical twins. And the way I started, I met 3 sets of identical twins on the street. And in the spring, and liked the work, and that gave me the idea to pursue it. I liked 2 of the 3 images that I shot, and then just said, well, no one's really done this. I'm going to pursue this. I did it for a year, showed some work to an editor, Jim Hughes, at Popular Photography, Camera, and then he encouraged me to do more, and 2 years later I got the chance to do the Twins project. And I was very, very proud of it. And I think it was a This is a 6-year project, and I did a book called Parallels: A Look at Twins that came out in 1978. I shot it from 72 to 77. And my strategy is from day one, to get close to people, to use wide-angle lenses. These are all 21 millimeter lenses.
What camera were they shot?
Leica.
Leica.
And I interviewed the twins, and I did 155 sets of twins in about 6 years, and the book came out with 55 images in the book. I don't think I've ever had a better idea photographically than to do this. Arbus's work, Arbus did one set of twins, one pair of twins, and so she gets all that like notoriety for it. It's a famous and great shot. Mm-hmm. And so many people say, oh, you copied her. I wasn't even aware of her at that time, early 70s.
72.
Yeah. This is when I started that. And I did 155. She did one set of twins.
And Sarkowski and her, the relationship was, what, 69 to 72? Or?
Yeah, she committed suicide in 72, I think, okay. Right? I think, yeah. So I love that body of work. It's pretty straightforward, but I think it's pretty unique still. Mary Ellen Mark did a series of twins, and she credited me. We're friends, and she said, oh yeah, she knows that I did it. But hers were a lot different. Mine are more environmental.
Right.
I tried to get the environment in the body of work such that it reflected on the theme of doubleness or twinship.
We saw that especially that one that's rolling
right.
now with the two stuffed animals and the kids.
So I do work in long-term project form. My Coney Island book is 26 years. My book on Italy is 6 years. My book on artists is 6 years. And I just signed a book contract for another Coney Island book, 40 years Coney Island. It'll come out next year.
Will Coney Island be there next year?
Yes, it's thriving. It's bigger than ever.
It's not going to be a bunch of condos? It's going to...
No, it's not. I hope. No, it's not.
That's good to hear.
There's new rides going to be there this year, so...
Really?
Yeah.
Are you going to go on them, or if a little
yeah,
lady
I'm going to go
is
on.
in front
I'm
of
going
you?
to go on.
Okay.
But the Mermaid Parade is the third Saturday of June. It's coming up, so you guys should be there.
You know, I want to talk about the Mermaid Parade.
Okay.
It is an amazing.
It's fabulous.
It's fabulous. It's colorful.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking for subjects, it's all
right.
there. And if anyone has never been to the Mermaid Parade in Coney Island, we really recommend it. Definitely grab a camera and go.
Yeah.
I had a little difficulty on the strategy of doing the Mermaid Parade because it's popular. A lot of people are there. Could you give us if one was to go to the Mermaid Parade and wanted to cover it and shoot it,
right.
you get some inside tips on that?
Sure. I go 2 hours early or 3 hours before it starts. And there's a section that is walled off, sort of, on the street. And you pay $5 per camera, and you can go into this area where all the participants arrive and dress and paint their faces. And it does get crowded, but any event that I do, I always go hours before, and I usually go at the beginning of the event to just get people who are arriving. They're standing around, they're hanging out, they have nothing much to do. So getting there early and being aggressive. I mean, there's going to be a lot of photographers, but you get in front of them and shoot, and then you get out of the way and let them shoot, and you share.
I've heard a lot of people have trouble sometimes approaching a subject. Can we do some quick role play here?
No.
No?
Sure.
Can you make believe I have a mermaid tail and you're
so
interested
I just pick
in
up the camera and I
me?
go like that. That's it.
You don't ask. You don't get.
No, I do usually ask people, but sometimes I'll just pick. I use a 21 millimeter on my Leica. This is an M4. I have a 35. I have a 21. 2 bodies, and I'm preset. There's no meter. I know the light. I'm pre-focused, and I'm just ready to shoot. And so I'll ask people, but sometimes I won't, and I'll get close. You really have to get close with a lens this wide angle.
Speaking about getting close, can we roll some of your Movimento work?
Sure.
Let's take a look at this Movimento work. Jennifer, if you can pull up the Movimento work.
Movimento.
Movimento.
Yeah. So
The one thing that strikes me on that is that it looks like some of the people are actually they're striking you. There's a couple of hands up.
Yeah, there's one or two. This is in Italy. I shot this from 1996 to 2005, and the book came out in 2006. And these are all, again, with a 21 millimeter. I'm not speaking to these people particularly because I don't know the language, but a lot of them see me with the camera. In Italy, this is very close. This person I walked by her, and I knew I'd be out of focus with this image, but the yawn, the gesture was so strong. So I'm not, and here in this photograph, I see that the mouths are open. I don't know if you can see that, both mouths are open. I didn't know that that was happening, but after the fact, I see it, and that's why I selected it. Same thing here. The gestures, the mouths, the talking. One thing I will say, in Italy, 99% of the people will say yes when you approach them. It's amazing. Marilyn was there with me. I'd say in Manhattan, 50% of the people will say no. In Brooklyn, 80% of the people will say yes. You can't take this personally. They say no, okay. Sometimes I try to force it, and if it's no, you move on. Don't take it personally. Here, this woman put her purse up in front of her face. I thought she was photographing me, actually. It looks like she has a little point-and-shoot camera. But I like that. I like a gesture of a hand in front of the face, very visual. And then I usually say, oh great, that's exactly what I wanted you to do. Make them feel bad, And sometimes it really works. It just adds another visual element. This woman was shielding her eyes from the light, not from me necessarily. And I saw her, I liked the way her arm was, her shadow on her face made by her arm, so I just took a quick photograph. I didn't speak to her. But I'm ready. That's the point, to be ready, to be pre-everything. I'm shooting some digital images now. I have a Canon 5D, and I use a 17 to 35 zoom lens, 2.8. That's the only lens that I have. I never use telephoto lenses. I would make an outrageous statement, but it's true. There's never been a great photograph ever taken with a telephoto lens.
You said that to me when we talked about this, and
there's no way. Show me.
I started looking into that. I'd have to agree with you on that one.
Well,
aside from wildlife photography.
Yeah, there's a place for it. But who wants to do wildlife?
Yeah.
I go to Ecuador every year. I'm doing a workshop in a month. You're invited. We're not going to the Galapagos. We're going to Quito and to some outlying areas to photograph the events, the celebrations, the solstice, not the animals.
I have a question. Do you self-edit? Do you have someone that sits down with your proof sheets, or how do you make your selections?
No, I select my own work. I'm going into the darkroom tomorrow. I still print. I spend a lot of time looking at contact sheets with film or digital images on the monitor. I select my own work. I edit my own work. And then when I make my prints and putting work together, I might ask someone to look at it with me. And usually it's just one person. You don't want to ask 5 or 10 because it seems to me you'll get 5 or 10 different directions and responses. So that's confusing. So one person whose taste I trust, whose work I might like, an editor, a photographer, a colleague, an art director, and that one person will change from project to project often, or from year to year.
Do you have a recommendation for someone who's maybe just completed a body of work or just completed a project that they feel that the self-editing, they're not up to it? Is there maybe Miss Swanson is a very, she's a...
You mean to help them?
Yeah.
Yeah, me.
Yeah, okay.
No, I don't, Virginia Swanson is a good person to get help with developing your portfolio. She does it professionally. She's a consultant. Mm-hmm. She's listed in Photograph, the semi...
I think that is that, do you go to someone who's a quote-unquote professional, or can you, you're saying is a qualified friend? Or
Yeah,
an
a friend,
acquaintance,
a teacher, an ex-teacher, a fellow photographer, a colleague. I would say don't go to your husband or wife or your kids because they're biased. They're either going to love everything you do or not like anything you do. So I wouldn't go to them, probably, but you know, you'll meet people, other photographers.
As a qualifying factor, would you show your work to someone that is very familiar with street photography, or would you prefer to go to maybe someone who's kind of maybe more steeped in, like, let's say, nature, wildlife?
Maybe more in the history of photography or the art world.
Okay.
It could be a painter or a designer. Person I'm sharing my work with now is a photographer, but her work is totally different than mine. She does more fine art photography, diptychs, probably.
I just want to run back. You talked a little bit about time and your influence of time, and just want to. Do you have a body of work that really embraces time that you can take a look at?
Yeah, Movimento again. I have all the just about every image deals with emotion. Movimento means movement in Italian, and if you can go to the Italian pictures, I guess we saw some of them. But there's blur usually in the background of most of these photographs, and I can't say that, like, even this one, where the man's moving, I probably panned the camera a little bit. So that wasn't my initial intention, but I did see that cropping up. And I say in my curator's statement that time is embedded in every photograph ever taken with a camera. So how can we not deal with it? Whether it's a split second and we're freezing a speeding bullet, or we're doing 8-hour exposures to get star trails. I use a lot of blur in my and long exposures in my pinhole photography, which I don't know. Do we have some pinhole images? I think we do. Is it the water work? And I use yeah. So these are all pinhole. And I don't know if you can see it. This is the Atlantic Ocean, this image, and there's...
What's the average time of your exposure with pinhole?
10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. My f-stop is, there's a good example. My f-stop is f500, something like that.
Good depth of field.
Great depth of field, great depth. So I'm aware of time as a human being, certainly. and the way it's fleeting and seeming to disappear, and certainly in my photographs. I do a lot of night stuff with long exposures also. So
time is important. It's an ingredient you're saying that is
inherent to the process, it seems like, yeah. Where other art forms, that's not true.
Okay. How does the emerging photographer embrace time, because they're new? I mean, they're just in the morning. Or your coffee time, your tea time in the afternoon.
You know, another thing with young photographers is that I find, you know, they're really hot for a while, and then they either cool off or they stop doing it, and they get, you know, they'll work for 3 or 4 or 5 years and then move on to something else outside of the realm of photography. A lot of my students are really great in school, but when they come out and they have to work on their own, they're not so terrific. So for me, time means being patient and working over the long term and the long haul, and not getting caught up in daily frustrations, because photography can be very frustrating and lonely, and just pursue your work and believe in yourself. And I think the more we can do that, the better the chances are that we'll make some breakthroughs and make some good work.
You know, while I was reviewing your work, I got attracted to a certain piece of your work, and I have to say that I think there was maybe a mechanism within it that made me like it. It was the can we see the New York street scenes? I think we have the street scenes. Okay. And what attracted me to the street scenes was I don't want to call it a cheap effect, but it's a little bit of nostalgia. Time went by, time aged this. And even when you said before you worked on Madison Avenue, there's currently a TV show that's very highly rated, Mad Men. And it just shows, you know, when you think Madison Avenue, you think of this heyday of the advertising firms that were on Madison Avenue. But looking at this work, it's fairly dated.
Jeez, I hate to hear that.
Well, not because of the black and white nature, and really, I think with the advent of digital and David LaChapelle, we're inundated and flooded with color.
Yeah.
But looking at the style and time on that, any
Well, I
comments on
still
that?
shoot that. I'm still shooting that. I like the fact that my pictures, that my pictures look old. Even if I've shot it in 2010, my Mexico photographs, I don't think we have them here. They all look like they came from another century. So I'm in Mexico City and I'm not photographing on the fancy streets. I'm photographing on old streets, and I want that quality. Oh, here's some. I want the quality of time because I don't know. I think it gives a certain resonance and depth to my work, and maybe the black and white also signifies.
Does your new street scenes, is that holding up against your older street work?
It's the same.
No.
I don't think I've changed that much, unfortunately, for better or worse. No, I aim for a certain consistency in my work. I will do different kinds of bodies of work that will be different, but within the street scene genre, this is kind of the way I work. Close, I don't know, the qualities that I like. This is a couple years ago, this photograph. This could be 1950, 1940. And that's another reason I like to go to Mexico, is because it does feel historic and there's a timeless quality to it.
Yeah, it can be if someone's talking on an iPhone or they're talking on a big old early 90s mobile phone, and that's indicators in there. Do you look for things like that are in a scene?
I look for contrasts and odd juxtaposition, certainly. So if I have a nun with an iPhone, I'll certainly want to photograph that. I look for discontinuities and surprises in my work. I look for a certain bizarre quality or strange quality. I know what I'm attracted to. I can't always say exactly what it is. A certain off-kilterness, strangeness in our behavior, in our bearing. I look for people that look unusual, not that are freaky necessarily, but here's a guy with a gun. I certainly look for that, as long as it's not pointed at me.
Have you ever had a foray into conflict photography?
I've been chased and had a bottle thrown at me, and that's about it. But I've never photographed in a war zone or anything, if that's what you mean. I'm not interested in that.
You don't want to hang out with James Knockway? And, I hear Afghanistan, there's some great photographs
there's
there.
enough here. I don't believe that you have to go all over the world to photograph, although I do a lot of that. But you can make great images in your backyard, in your apartment, in your neighborhood. I photograph a lot in my neighborhood.
Just talking about that and inspiration to get into a photograph, and you're definitely project-based, which is I think arguably one of the best ways to get into photography. And
I think so.
Think in a plural sense as opposed to a singular sense. What can you give advice on somebody who, let's just say, they go into B&H Photo and they buy themselves a Canon 5D Mark II, a 24-70 2.8 L lens, and they got this incredible gear, maybe a 580 EX2 flash, and they got all this equipment, and they got their 8 gigabyte card, and that's it. What's next? I mean, we could walk on the street and we could see about maybe just kind of, are we looking for something? What advice could you give for someone to give themselves a project, an assignment that's going to thrill them, keep them occupied?
I mean, I look for assignments that engage me, that are personally based. What are you interested in? What do you want to learn more about in this world? I started my AIDS project because I didn't know anyone with AIDS, and here I'm living in New York City, the epicenter of the AIDS epidemic in New York, in America. So I knew of an organization that helps AIDS people living with AIDS, and contacted them, and I got to go down there for 5 years shooting. So, what do you want to say? What it is that you have to say? Do you want to photograph your family? Do you want to photograph your neighborhood?
Did you feel by working with the AIDS epidemic and those victims that you were helping? I mean, you're not you're not working in a lab on a cure, but
Right.
was this your way of working it out?
It was my
or?
way of making a connection. I felt I was helping the individuals that I was photographing. Often we talked. I talked on the phone with them. I gave them a photograph. I gave them a print, an 11 by 14 print. I paid some attention to them. This is in 92, 93. Reagan sort of still hanging around. AIDS, people living with AIDS are marginalized, probably still are. I wanted to give them voice. I did interviews with them. I've done shows at medical centers with this work and college galleries with this work. George Eastman showed it and then toured the work for 3 or 4 years across the country. So for me, it was like I was giving back something.
It's really a brave project because, first off, physiologically, were you ever in fear of, especially in '92, of being in such contact with AIDS?
No.
Did you ever fear a connection with, I mean, let's face it, you're photographing people that are potentially really have a death sentence.
Right.
Any fear in going into the project where you knew that maybe the subject really wasn't going to be around or
Right.
you were photographing in the last months of their life?
I photographed one woman who died 10 days later, and that hit me hard. But no, I didn't think about those kind of things. I thought, wow, they need some attention. This is a new kind of project for me. I'm going to learn a lot and get involved with a community that I'm not involved with, such as it was. And I would say I got more out of this than any other project. More appreciation, and I gave more and I got more. I was like a volunteer.
You went further into it
Right.
than, say, getting up in the morning and walking down Fifth Avenue photographing.
And photograph, because I had this really personal contact with these people.
Okay.
And then would deliver the photograph personally to them, and they told me how they're going to use the photograph and how meaningful it was to them.
Okay, well, let's talk about equipment a little bit.
And do they have to? Do they have to?
You know what? Equipment's important. A photographer integrates with equipment a certain way. Moving forward into the digital world. Now, you're still shooting film. You're still in the darkroom. What digital camera are you working with now?
So I have the 5D.
The Mark II? Or?
No, I have the 5D that I bought 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
And I have one lens, the 16, is it, or 17 to 35, 2.8, and that's all I use. I hadn't bought a camera for 30 years. I have a couple of these, and I bought some used cameras, Nikons, for slide film. So I resent digital because it's made me buy new cameras and spend money.
Talk about this resenting of digital. You came here and presented before, and you're one of only 2 photographers that have made me go into the used department and borrow a slide projector for the presentation. You and Amy Arbus are in
good company.
Good company there.
Yeah.
So it made me get a carousel projector.
Well, I'm going to try to learn PowerPoint or Keystone.
Keynote.
I'm going to learn that and get hip.
Okay, so you've got the 5D. You know, I don't know if you knew this, but a little over a year ago they came out with the 5D Mark II.
I know.
21 megapixel goodness, and the big thing is the HD video, which is really taking everyone by storm. I mean, a photographer had to learn Photoshop. Now, you know, if you were going to be a really honest photographer, you had to have some understanding of Photoshop. Now we have another program. You kind of have to understand Final Cut.
Okay.
What type of impact does this have?
So what I would say is, if I were just starting, it would have a lot of impact. It doesn't impact me at all. I know what I want to do. I'm very happy shooting with my 5D for now and with my Leicas. I'm not looking for commercial jobs. I'm doing my own projects. I'm teaching my workshops. So I don't feel the need to keep up with everything. I don't have time. So I'm not worried about it. And I wouldn't let all this stuff drive you crazy, because you can never keep up with it. Find your niche or what makes you happy and just continue with that. I'll be shooting film until I can't shoot any longer, and I'll be shooting digitally. I've probably shot 150,000 frames digitally. I can count those, and I have made maybe 3 prints total, 5 prints total. I don't have a printer.
So you're outsourcing.
So
the
I
printing work?
outsource it, or I'm using JPEGs, converting to JPEGs from RAW, and then sending it to competitions or to show my portfolio or whatever. I don't need digital prints really, or show it on my iPhone or something, or my iPad.
Do you have an iPad?
No. I'm not getting an iPad yet, but that would be a good way to show it.
Okay, Harvey, what's next for Harvey Stein?
I'm going to continue to photograph and teach and do workshops. So I'm going to do a workshop in maybe Laos next year and Argentina. I'm doing Peru this year for the first time. Just continue my book projects and maybe learn a little more about digital.
Okay.